are boomkins because they're really mobile and they're really good at ninjaing bases from enemy defenders. So now that I talk about comp, I just want to talk a little bit about strategy. The general strategy is to try to control 2 nodes and capture as many flags as possible. And if you somehow are only controlling 1 node, say you mess up in the opener and you don't get a really good team fight, or one of your team fights fails, and you're only controlling 1 node, you're going to want to spend the rest of the game trying to retake a node, and then on top of that, you're going to want to focus on capturing carts and slowing the enemy flag carrier from capturing carts. So even if you are behind on nodes, you can make up for that in cart captures. And if you are behind, you just want to set up ninjas, and you can set up ninjas on bases using your rogue or your boomkin. Anything with stealth is really good at ninjing and really good at taking bases back. If you do get a good early game and you're able to control 2 nodes at the start of the game, you're going to want to keep your warlock and mage defending the bases, and you're going to want to float as necessary. And by floating, I mean you're going to want to keep members of your team in between nodes so that if there's enemies incoming to those nodes, that they can easily get there and help defend, and so your warlock and mage don't get ninja'd on. Some good floating positions are in between the center base and then the top and south bases. So say for instance you're controlling the center base and the south base, the place you're going to want to float is in between the center and the bottom base. And of course, if you're controlling the top base and the middle base, you're going to want to keep your floaters in between the middle base and the top base. As far as who should be a floater on this map, it's really good to have at least 1 healer be a floater. That way they can make sure that the person defending the base doesn't die to enemy players that are incoming. And on top of that, you're just going to want to keep players that are really mobile to be floaters. For instance, druids, boomkins are really mobile, so they're really good choices to be floaters on this map. The reason you want to keep a mage or warlock defending on this base is for 2 reasons. Number 1, they have really good defensive cooldowns. Mages have Ice Block, and warlocks have Dark Bargain. On top of that, they also have pets, which are really good for defending. So say for instance the warlock gets polymorphed, his pet can still attack the target that's trying to capture the node, and that way it won't be able to capture over. Now that we have some basic strategy in hand, I just want to talk about some more nuanced strategy. And I think the most natural way to do that is to start at the beginning with the opener on this map. You're going to want to send 3 players to each base, and you're going to want to select 3 players that are really good in a 3v3 comp. So say for instance you have a mage, lock, and shaman on your team. I would recommend sending that mage, lock, and shaman to a base at the beginning of the game because that is a really good 3v3 comp. And typically you're going to want to send a DK warrior and some sort of healer to the center base, simply because they're the tankiest and it is usually the base that gets capped last. And you're going to want to use a rogue to quick cap one of the bases, and if you're horde it's going to be the south base, and if you're alliance it's going to be the north base. And I'll demonstrate what I mean by quick capping in a second. But whatever node the rogue isn't quick capping, you're going to want to send like your mage, lock, and shaman to the other one. So as a recap, you're going to want to send 3 players to each base, and you're obviously going to have an extra player, and you should send them to wherever they're needed. So say there's only 3 players in mid, and there's 4 players at top, you're going to want to send your extra player to top to help win that team fight. As I mentioned just a second ago, you're going to want to use your rogue to help quick cap a base, and it's going to be a culmination of effort between your rogue and your guardian druid for quick capping. Before I go into how to quick cap, there are some talents and glyphs you need to be running in order to do so. As a rogue, you're going to want to be running with Night Stalker, which is the first talent. And the reason why you want to run with this talent is it increases your speed while in stealth by 20%. And this pairs really nicely with one of the glyphs you're going to need, which is Glyph of Sprint, which increases your speed while sprinting by 30%. On top of this, you're going to want to choose Smoke Bomb Glyph, and that increases the duration of Smoke Bomb by 2 seconds, which you're going to use when you get to the node to bomb cap it. On top of that, you're going to want to have in your inventory the level 60 PvP boots, the general boots. And the reason for this is because they increase the duration of sprint by 3 seconds. So you're going to want to equip those boots before you attempt the quick cap, because they'll increase the duration of sprint, which you'll need to get to the base quickly. So in this next clip, I'm just going to demonstrate how to quick cap using your Guardian Druid and your Rogue. And once again, and before I get to the base, I'm going to re-equip my level 90 boots. And I'm just going to bomb on top of my Guardian Druid, and I'm going to run towards where the enemy team's coming. I'm just going to try to sap whoever can potentially stop my Guardian Druid. As you can see, we're able to get a cap because the duration of bomb was 8 seconds, and that's how much time it takes to cap the base. So after you get the quick cap, you're just going on team fight at this base. And right now we have a healer with us, and then we have a mage plus our Guardian Druid. So we have a fairly decent comp for scoring kills. I decided to go on the Shaman because he's the best target to kill. He's the squishiest out of everyone here. But he's going to wind up getting gripped, and he's going to actually waste his Spirit Link on that grip. He winds up linking nothing. So he's pretty safe right now. So right now I'm just going to swap to the Rogue, who's in a Cyclone, and he's relatively low health. I'm going to use my advantage to do this, and I call out to my enemy team that we're swapping to Rogue. I'm just going to cheap shot him. Unfortunately, it's a bit DR'd, but that's fine. And I'm just going to pump out as much damage as I can. If you are the Rogue on this map and you are running with the talents and glyphs for quick capping, you don't really have good talents and glyphs for team fighting, which is fine, because you're not going to be team fighting much. But I'm able to score a kill on that Rogue, which is fine, and that's actually really good because right now we're in a really good position. We outnumber them at this base 4-2, and we can just finish off the remainder of these enemy players, and we're going to leave our mage to defend this base. And now I'm going to switch perspectives to that of someone who didn't go to the quick cap base. So I'm on my Warlock here, and I'm playing Horde, so the quick cap base is the south base, so I'm going to be going to the north base with a DK and a Resto Druid. And this is a fairly strong 3v3 comp, so it will be really good in this team fight. And what we're going to be looking to do is coordinate damage as best as we possibly can, while the other players of our team are going for quick caps, and while we have some players on our team going to the center base to just toy with that team fight. So when we're going to get here, I'm going to figure out what target is best for us to kill. So luckily for us, the enemy team did not quick cap this base. So what we're going to be looking to do is just team fight them with our 3 players. And we do notice that they have 4 players at this base, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be calling for 1 or 2 players to reinforce. Once again, I mentioned if you send 3 players to each base, that means you're going to have an extra player. And the place they're going to go is wherever they're needed. So right now they're needed at this base because we're outnumbered. But we're going to be looking to score a kill on the Resto Shaman. It is the easiest person to kill this particular setup. And what I'm going to be looking to do, and what my job is as the Warlock, is to make sure that no one caps the flag, and to use my crowd control abilities on the enemy healer and to cross CC, just to make sure that the amount of pressure we're taking is as reduced as possible. If you use a lot of control abilities, the amount of damage you're going to be taking is significantly less than if you didn't use control. So once again, we're just going to team fight, and we're going to be looking to get a kill on the Resto Shaman because he is the easiest thing to kill. And while we're going for a kill on him, I'm just going to once again try to CC the other players. And if we are hitting the Resto Shaman, that means we can lock him down so he can't tremor his partners. So as you can see right now, we did pull in our warrior to help us win this team fight. And I'm just going to cast as much damage on the Shaman. He winds up going down to just my warrior and my DK. And I guess my rogue showed up too, which is pretty good. That means we won another base. So as many people as you can help reinforce a base, you're going to want to do that. So if you are getting outnumbered, you definitely want to have some people reinforce. And because we won this, and because I'm in the Warlock, I'm going to be the person tasked with defending, which is fine. So I'm going to pull out a pet, and I choose to pull out a Voidwalker just because the enemy team does have a lot of melee, and my Voidwalker can disarm, and it's really tanky. So I choose to run with that pet. And once again, I'm going to switch perspectives to someone who's in the mid fight. So this particular team sent a lot of players to mid, so because of this we're going to want to mirror their strategy, and we're going to want to send a lot of players to mid and try to quick cap one of the bases and try to maybe win the other with as few players as possible. So as you can see, we have a lot of players both on our team and the enemy team in the mid fight. And because of this, it's going to be very hard to cap the middle flag. But from a healer point of view, what you're going to want to do is use a lot of your AoE healing. So as a Resto Druid, I'm keeping my Shroom down, and I'm using Wild Growth on cooldown. I'm playing with Soul of the Forest, and if you play with Soul of the Forest plus a Wild Growth Glyph, and you get a Soul of the Forest Wild Growth, it'll do a ton of AoE healing and will really help in these team fights. So once again, here's another clip of a sample team fight, and as you can see, it's pretty hectic. But as long as we have at least 2 healers up in this team fight, no one should be dying. And if they are dying, that means they should be using their defensive cooldowns. And this type of strategy where they're sending a lot of players to mid is relatively scary because it means they're going to have to devote a lot of resources to this base. But, as long as you can keep your bases under control and you are able to keep your team up in mid, it's actually a decent position to be in because, you'll be distracting the enemy team at one central location the entire game. I'm going to go back to my rogue point of view. So this is right after we quick capped the south base. And what I'm going to be looking to do as a rogue is I'm going to be looking to reinforce whatever base needs help. So right now it appears that the middle base needs help. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be trying to cap, and if I can't cap, I'm just going to spin and try to help with the team fight. So right now what I'm doing as a rogue is I'm waiting for the enemy flag carrier to break off and to try to get our flag. And usually enemy teams, it's a mathematical strategy for teams to wait till the enemy team has 200 points before picking up the flag. The reason why it's good to wait till 200 points before picking up the cart is, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, holding a cart reduces the enemy's resources by 200 points. So if you pick up the enemy cart at 150 points, it's going to be less effective than if you were to do it at 200 points. Because if you hold it at 150, you're only reducing their points by 150. Whereas if you wait till 200, then you're reducing their points by a full 200. For this reason, once again, it's usually common for enemy flag carriers to wait till there's 200 points on the enemy team before picking up the cart. So as a rogue, my job after quick capping is to slow the enemy flag carrier, but he won't pick up the cart immediately. And for this reason, that's why I tend to go to these mid fights, or I try to go to whatever base is in trouble. And once again, I'm just waiting till the enemy flag carrier picks up the cart before I break off and try to slow him. So I'm just gonna continue fighting in this mid fight, and I'm gonna spin if necessary. And I want to try to save my cloak and a vanish to break off to slow the enemy flag carrier, because it's going to be quite obvious when I do try to slow him, and if I have dots on myself, I won't be able to stealth. Right quickly, I'm going to switch perspectives to someone who is defending, and right now I'm defending on a mage. And as you can see, I keep my pet on the node itself, and the reason for this is because say a warlock were to come try to ninja from me, and say my pet is right next to me, he can just AoE fear both me and my pet, and that forces me to either use my ice block or trinket. So if I keep my pet far away from me, it reduces the chance that we're going to be AoE feared, and that's really good because that helps make sure that you can't get ninja'd on by a warlock or a priest. But as you can see, this is somewhat boring, and you just want to keep your AoE abilities rolling on top of the flag, especially if the enemy team has a rogue. They're going to generally send a rogue to ninja on your mage or warlock. So in this next clip, it is me getting ninja'd on, or someone attempting to ninja on me, and it's a rogue. And in this 1v1 situation, it's relatively scary from the mage point of view because you don't anticipate the rogue coming, so he can actually force a lot of cooldowns. So as you can see, he's popped his trinket and his cloak, and I'm just going to alter his cloak because I can't hit him through it, so I'm just going to want to stay at as high health as possible. I wind up whiffing my frozen orb right here because the rogue actually vanishes, but he's used a lot of cooldowns, And right now he opens on me again and I'm forced to ice block. But I wind up cold snapping, so it's not that big of a deal. But right now the rogue has nothing. And it would be an okay idea to call for maybe one person to help you. But because this rogue literally has no cooldowns, I'm not too worried. I'm actually going to wind up killing him. But just the rule of thumb, the thing that you should take away from this clip is that you will, at some point in the game, be attempted to get ninja'd on by a rogue. And, you know, you're going to want to not freak out, not use your defensive cooldowns kind of sporadically. And, you know, if you can, save your ice block for when it's absolutely necessary, that's really good. And sitting in your ice block is actually really good because it allows your teammates to help reinforce the base. Once again, I'm going to change perspectives. I'm going to go back to my rogue, and I was just in the team fight, and I noticed that the enemy flag carrier just picked up flag. So I'm going to use my cloak to get all these dots off of me, and I'm going to run towards the enemy flag carrier, and I'm going to do a CC chain on him. And this CC chain, ideally, will consist of 3 saps into a stun lock, followed by a blind. But I don't have blind up right now, so I'll demonstrate that full CC chain in just a second. So I sap him right here. I'm going to let that sit for full. And I'm going to sap him 2 more times. So that's the half sap right there. It's going to last for 4 seconds. And the quarter duration sap. Following saps, you're just going to cheap shot. You're not going to want to put a hemorrhage on the target because you don't want him to bleed. Because if he has bleeds on him, you won't be able to sap him. I just run away at this point because I don't have a blind, and I'm just going to bomb on top of myself so I can't get fairy fired by the tank. And what I'm going to keep on doing is chasing after him. And once again, because we are playing with Night Stalker, we are really fast while in stealth. So once I catch back up with him, I'm going to do the same rotation, sap him 3 times in a row, into stuns, followed by a blind. So as you can see, there's the half sap. I'm going to move in for the quarter sap in just a second. Following this quarter sap, once again, we're going to open on him with stuns. So I'm going to cheap shot him, following the sap. And I'm just going to backstab him for combo points, making sure not to bleed him. And then I'm going to kidney shot him. Then I'm actually going to blind the target. Before I blind him, I want him to wind up vanishing. And that was actually kind of smart because he did get the disorient off. And if I hadn't vanished first, he could have gotten a fairy fire. So following the blind, I'm just going to sap him. As you can see, he's forced to trinket that, and he actually has a someone reinforce. And unfortunately for me, that person does knock me out of stealth, but luckily I have a preparation vanish ready. And we're going to do the same CC rotation over and over and over on this flag carrier. From the moment he picks up the flag to the moment he captures the flag. And it a team fight, so it's actually really good. You're going to want to run node in the enemy Holy Priest because they have life